What's up guys, it's Ryan here, and welcome to this video where we are going to be talking all about melee DPS rotations. I'm going to show you guys my rotation and my 5-minute DPS gem, but more importantly, I'm also going to be showing you guys how to come up with an ability rotation and an ability prioritization of your own. That way, regardless of what gear you have, whether you're on Revolution or full manual, this video will still be able to help you output the most damage possible. The standard melee rotation consists of 3 parts. Building to 100% adrenaline, your Berserk rotation, and then you're waiting for Berserk to come off cooldown. If we cover all 3 of these points one at a time, we will have constructed a full-on melee DPS rotation. We're going to start off with the basics. What is an ability rotation? An ability rotation is the order you use abilities in to deal the most damage possible. The backbone of any ability rotation is the basic ability. The rule for basics is simple. Use the ability that does the most damage. You can find out how much damage an ability does by simply hovering over it in the ability book. It really is as simple as that. You want to prioritize the abilities that do a lot of damage, and if you see an ability that doesn't do a lot of damage, you probably want to leave that off your bar. These are the 10 strongest basic abilities in the game for building adrenaline. Dismember is by far your strongest ability, especially with the lunging perk and or the strength cape. If you don't have either of those things, it's still going to be your strongest basic. After that, you've got Backhand with flanking 3, and then Cleave, Sever, and Decimate are all tied as the 3rd, 4th, and 5th strongest abilities you have. The 6th strongest basic ability is Greater Fury, tied with a 2-hit Fury. A 2-hit Fury is when you use the regular Fury ability and then cancel it with another ability as soon as you can. In 7th, you've got a tie between Havoc and Smash, and then in 9th, you've got a tie between Barge and Greater Barge. Greater Barge will do more damage than Barge, but they still have the exact same priority in that list. Greater Barge isn't so much better that it goes above the other basics. In 10th place we have Slice, and you should never actually need to use Slice in any rotation. You won't ever be able to get into a situation where all of those above abilities are on cooldown. There are a number of abilities that are not on this list, such as Tuska's Wrath and Sacrifice. The reason they're not here is in a regular PVMing scenario, they deal less damage than anything else on this list. This is a very rough example of what your building phase could look like. You'll notice I'm prioritizing the higher up abilities in terms of damage, so I'm using Dismember, Flanking Backhand, Cleave, Sever, and Decimate as often as I possibly can. Cleave and Decimate are both extremely powerful abilities that don't share a cooldown. If you're willing to switch between a 2-hand and a main hand offhand, this will allow half of your basic abilities used to be Cleave and Decimate. Weapon switching is not a bad idea, but it's also not needed. That's why there are a lot of abilities down that list that you can cycle through. This is an example of a 12 ability adrenaline building rotation, first with max gear, and then after that, camping dual wields with no switches and no unlockable abilities. The above rotation is significantly better than the one below, but the below rotation isn't bad at all and absolutely beats having Slice as your first ability. When you're looking at ability rotations, it's all about doing the best damage you can with the abilities you have. So, although the top rotation is something to strive towards being able to do, if you don't have the gear or the perks, the below one is a great starting point. This rotation factors in cooldowns and everything, so it'll work completely perfectly in that order. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to memorize this and build in the exact same way every single time, but these are some decent examples of what your rotation could look like if you're being conscious of cooldowns and prioritizing the higher damaging abilities. This is definitely not something you need to memorize. Now that we've built to 100% adrenaline, it's time to go through a Berserk rotation. Berserk is an ultimate ability that doubles damage dealt while increasing damage taken by 50%. It lasts for 20 seconds. Bleeds like Dismember, Slaughter, and Blood Tendrils do not gain any increased damage from Berserk, and because of this, they should not be used while Berserk is active. This is a list of the strongest basic abilities to use inside of a Berserk rotation. You'll notice that this looks almost identical to the previous list we looked at for basics. The only difference is that the Dismember ability has been replaced with the Greater Barge Bleed effect. Dismember doesn't stack, and the Greater Barge Bleed when paired with a Threshold is insanely powerful. Other than that one spot, everything else is identical. As for your thresholds, it's pretty easy. Assault is number 1, Destroy is number 2, and then if you have a tiny bit of time at the very end of your rotation, you can either use a Greater Flurry, a Forceful Backhand, or a Quake. That's it. Now let's take a look at what a Berserk rotation might actually look like. Because I've got Greater Barge, I'm going to use a defensive ability to get up to 100% adrenaline, and I'm going to pull myself out of combat. That way my Greater Barge Bleed effect will be active. If you don't have Greater Barge, you're going to simply use basic abilities all the way up to 100% adrenaline. I'm going to equip my Ring of Vigor, use Berserk, and then drink an Enhanced Replenishment Potion to give myself as much adren as possible. At this point, it's as simple as going down that priority list of basics until I can use a Threshold, and then consult the Threshold list. That's all you have to do. On the top, we've got the most advanced Berserk Rotation. It involves a Ring of Vigor, an enhanced Adrenaline Potion, weapon switching between dual wield and 2H, as well as a flanking switch. This rotation also takes advantage of Greater Barge as well as Greater Flurry. On the bottom row, we've got a very basic Berserk Rotation. It requires a regular Adrenaline Potion, a Ring of Vigor, and that's it. You're just camping dual wields the whole time. For most people, your Berserk Rotation is going to be somewhere in between these two things. You might have Greater Barge, but no 2H switch. You might be using enhanced adrenaline potions, but camping a scythe. And this is why it's so important to have an idea of which abilities are stronger than other ones. It allows you to create your own custom rotation to the exact gear specifications that you have. That's going to be a lot better than just copying some rotation from some internet page. This all looks really complicated because I'm using a ton of abilities and they're all going off, but the truth is it doesn't need to be a super precise art to get very, very good damage output. So long as in the back of your mind you've got some kind of idea of which abilities deal more damage than other ones, you're going to be able to put out a very good DPS rotation that should let you perform really well at a lot of different bosses. When it comes to switches and unlockable abilities, that's why I've shown you guys how to make your own ability rotation and what the ability prioritization should be. It means that if I'm doing something that you don't have, you can simply go down that list and find something that I haven't been using that you'll be able to. The third and final phase of a melee DPS rotation is when you're waiting to get Berserk back off cooldown. You'll have enough adrenaline to use some thresholds, but you don't want to use too many as soon as Berserk is available, you're going to want to use it. I'm only going to be going through threshold abilities here, as your basic abilities can be figured out by looking at a basic ability prioritization like the one from earlier on in this video. Basically, use the highest damage you can. With max gear, you'd want to use a Zaros Godsword special, Assault, and then Destroy or Hurricane. I include Hurricane here because there's a chance that you won't have enough time on your Zaros Godsword special for a full Destroy. If that happens, use a Hurricane instead. In a situation where you don't have any unlocks or switches, you'd want to use Assault, then Destroy or Hurricane. If your target is walkable, use Slaughter, and if you've got time, get in a Blood Tendrils as well. Here's what the max gear rotation looks like. My Zerk has just ended, and you can tell because my Assault and my Destroy are both on cooldown. I'm going to use a Zaros Godsword special, and as soon as Assault is available, I'm going to use it right away. You want to get Assault out of the way as soon as you can so that it's still available and off cooldown in time for your next Berserk. After that, I'm going to go through my Destroy, and then I'm just building up to full. As soon as you get to full adrenaline, you want your Berserk to just be coming off cooldown. That is a sign of a perfect building rotation, and the second Berserk is available, I'm doing it. This is why you don't want to use too many thresholds. If I'd used, let's say, a Blood Tendrils and a Slaughter as well, my Berserk would be available, but I wouldn't have enough adrenaline to actually use it. For this kind of rotation, it's a lot better to err on the side of caution and use fewer thresholds as opposed to too many. That being said, if you're finding that you're at 100% adrenaline and you have to do 3 or 4 more basic abilities before Berserk is available, that means you definitely had room for another threshold or 2. Now that we've been through all the components of a DPS rotation, let's take a look at my actual 5-minute gem. Before we get started, this is a challenge gem that you can purchase on the Grand Exchange, or you can buy them for rune coins. They track how much damage you're able to deal in 5 minutes, and these are the rules I'm going with. A lot of people have different rules and requirements for their gems. It's meant as a way to test yourself more than anything else, so it doesn't really matter what rules you go with, so long as you're consistent. For me personally, I'm on a 0% adrenaline start. I'm not allowed to have anything active in my pocket slot. I'm not allowed vulnerability. I'm not allowed poison, and I don't have a familiar. I'm also not using any auras. Other than that, switches, adrenaline potions, and the limitless ability are all allowed. While my melee gem plays in the background, I wanted to say that this gem is in no way perfect. It's just a decent gem that shows pretty well that you can output a lot of damage if you've got a decent knowledge of which abilities deal more damage than other ones. It's by no means the optimal rotation or the perfect gem or the highest gem I've ever done. That being said, it's pretty good, and it's a good illustration of what ability prioritizations can do to affect your damage output. Now that we've covered a lot of the important stuff, I also want to give you guys some other tips that didn't make it into the slides of this video. The most prevalent one is the auto attack. An auto attack is anytime you swing your weapon without firing an ability. Auto attacks are a really good way to increase the damage output you're able to deal with any combat style. In a melee rotation, it's very easy. Anytime you use any defensive ability that doesn't attack your target, Berserk or the Zaros Godsword special attack, make sure that the ability before is cast with dual wields. As soon as you use your defensives or your Berserk, equip your 2H and you'll get a free 2-handed auto attack. A 2-handed auto attack in a Berserk can literally hit 8,000 damage, and you get free adrenaline for it as well. So this is an absolutely fantastic way to increase your damage output for free. It's also not nearly as complicated as something like Fortic auto attacking, because you don't need to do this constant switching thing to weave in autos losslessly. It just happens when you're zerking, ZGSing, or using a defensive. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you in this video. I really hope you enjoyed. I know a lot of people have requested this video for a long time, and it took a good amount of time and research to get the right information and the right rotations. And then I also had a lot of help from a number of really well-known speed killers just to make sure that the info I was giving out was well displayed, well explained, and had proper PVM implications. So anyways, I appreciate your patience. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, if there's anything else you'd like to see me create, all you gotta do is let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good one, and I will catch you in the next one.